Hey guys, this is Mel, and I am back to talk about the Arrowverse, specifically the Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 4 and 5, both premiering on Tuesday, January 14th, 2020. Now, Part 4 is taking place in Arrow episode 808, and the Part 5 is taking part as a special episode for Legends of Tomorrow, which I'm calling 5-0-0, because it's supposed to take place before the season 5 premiere of Legends. So huge spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the conclusion of the Crisis crossover event, please go do so first and then come back and see what I have to say about the last portions of it. But yeah, so I'll try to do this in 30 minutes. Let's start the little timer and let's begin with what happened in this crossover. So I'm going to cover both of them in this part. I'll do each section and then I'm kind of jumping back and forth between the two parts. You'll see as I go along. But so timeline-wise, Part 4 actually takes place months after the where Part 3 had left off, which is when the Paragons had arrived to the Vanishing Point. Now for Barry, he thinks he only just left the Vanishing Point before going into the Speed Force, but for all the other Paragons who were stuck in the Vanishing Point, it's been months since they've seen Barry. So that's a little something there. For Part 5, though, it doesn't really distinguish timeline-wise. We're assuming that after the events that ended Part 4, it immediately jumps into Part 5, since this is when the reset starts. But there's no actual, timeline of, oh, it's, an hour later, or nothing like that. It's just assumed that it resets and takes us back to where, in the point of the timeline where the crisis should have been, so maybe, or didn't, I don't know. There's no actual dates in Part 5. Now, featured characters of the Crisis. So Part 4, for Supergirl, we see Kara, J'onn J'onzz, Lex, Clark, and Lois. For Flash, it's just Barry. For Arrow, it's Oliver Diggle and Laurel of Earth 1, not of Earth 2. So there's that. You'll understand why in a moment. For Legends, we only get Sarah and Ray. For Batwoman, it's only Kate. And then we also get the new character of Ryan Choi. I don't know which of the shows he's meant to be from. I'm assuming Flash, but we'll have to wait and see later on. But for Part 5, though, it does change up. With Supergirl, we get Kara, Alex, J'onn J'onzz, Lex, Nia Nal, Clark, and Lois. For Flash, we get Barry, Caitlin, and Nash. For Arrow, we get Oliver in voice only. We get Diggle, Renee, Dinah, and Lila. For Legends, we get Sarah, Ray, Mick of this Earth, not of another Earth. And then we get Nathan and Ava. For Batwoman, it's just Kate. For Black Lightning, it's Jefferson, aka Black Lightning himself. And again, we get Ryan Choi as well. So new characters, though, in Part 4, it is Zine Novu, which is Mar Novu, aka the Monitor's wife. We find out that she is actually the one nicknamed the Monitor, since she's the one that's always monitoring her husband when he time travels throughout the universe. At this point, Mar Novu has no special powers. So I guess it's the events of the origin story that created the Anti-Monitor. That's where he became known as the Monitor who has special powers. Now, for Part 5, there are no new characters that make an appearance, but it's a lot of our characters do appear because this is the reset world that we're living in, or the new multiverse world that we're living in. Now, the first scene of Part 4 is showing the origin story for the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor, where he travels to the dawn of time, which is actually supposed to be the temporal zone, but then he is suddenly breached into the anti-universe, which is where the Anti-Monitor got created. Now with Part 5, though, the first scene is Kara waking up back at her apartment by Alex, and she's a little confused by what has happened. So from that, though, I'll get into that. So for episode storylines, let's get into Part 4 first. We have 3 different specific storylines. The first one being Planet Maltus, second being Lost in the Speed Force, and third being the Dawn of Time. So the 1 and 2 are actually happening simultaneously, and then the third one is kind of once 1 and 2 have been resolved, and then they get into storyline number 3. So the first one with Planet Maltus, we see Kara, Ryan Choi, and Lex trying to stop the Monitor from going to the Dawn of Time, which led to the creation of the Anti-Monitor. We do see some Kara fighting against Lex in this one. With the second storyline of Lost in the Speed Force, we see Barry need to find the rest of the Paragons that are lost in the Speed Force due to the attack from the Anti-Monitor when Barry was trying to take them all to where they needed to go. So he needs to find them before they fall out of the Speed Force, because once they fall out of the Speed Force, the antimatter wave will consume them and get rid of them. So this is the part where we get a lot of old archive moments or reshot of those old episode moments. This is why we get Laurel of Earth 1 instead, because it's her and Diggle reliving the moment where Sarah was first killed in 302. Which I will talk about a little bit moment later on, but that's where we would have gotten her return. And also Katie with the long hair again, which is quite something. It's been a while since we've seen that. But anyway, so there's that. So then after 1 and 2 are done, we get the storyline number 3, which is the Dawn of Time. Now this is where we get the battle between the Paragons and the Anti-Monitor's army. We see the recreation of the universe, or the multiverse, if you will. This is where we get Oliver going against the Anti-Monitor, and Oliver's telling him, "You have failed this universe," which I think we all were hoping he would say. So that's something there. Then also, while this is happening, we get the Paragons fighting off the Antimatter army, which is the Shadow Army, I guess you could say. So there is that. Now with part 5, though, there are different storyline points to pick up on. There's 3 of them, though. We get the first one being introduction to this new world, or this new universe that was created. The second one is the Anti-Monitor's return, and the third one is the goodbye of the Green Arrow. Now all 3 of these ones happened in order, so it's not like one is happening before the other. So with the first one, the new world, this is where we find out that only one Earth has been created, aka Earth Prime. With this one, we have Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, and Black Lightning. All their worlds have been merged together into Earth Prime. So there's that. By the end of the episode, we do see which I will lead to later, we do see the outro that with this Earth Prime, more worlds were created from it to create the multiverse. So it's happened there. But anyways, second storyline, though, is the Anti-Monitor's return. This is where we get the plan to shrink the Anti-Monitor for forever, since they can't truly destroy him, because you cannot create nor destroy matter in the sense. So there's that. And then after all that is said and done, we do get an official goodbye to the Green Arrow through a presidential speech about Oliver's sacrifice and what he did to prevent the end of the world. And then after that, we do get the introduction of the Hall of Justice after they memorialize the Green Arrow suit. Hall of Justice, we also get that round table, which features 8 seats. I do have screenshots of all of the 8 symbols featured. There are some that I couldn't really pinpoint automatically. There was the arrow sign, there was the Flash one, the Legends, I believe they had one. There's two for the Kryptonians, one for Supergirl, one for Superman. There was for Black Lightning. I'm pretty sure there was one for the DEO. There was for Batwoman. So that is something there. I did have the question of whether or not 8 seats were supposed to represent the potential of having 8 shows representing the Arrowverse. As we know, Green Arrow is potential to have Arrow is potential to have its own spin-off featuring the Green Arrow and the Canaries. That is possible. We still have the Flash, we still have Legends, we still have Supergirl. We do have the proposed spin-off of Superman and Lois that's supposed to be happening. We do have Batwoman still. We still have Black Lightning as well. There is supposed to be the new show Stargirl. Not sure if it's actually going to be featured on Earth Prime or if it's another show within the multiverse, or at that moment that's where the DEO chair is supposed to take its spot. We have to wait and see about that. But I was kind of wondering if specifically they chose 8 seats in kind of like an Easter egg in regard to the fact that they might have 8 shows representing different aspects of the Arrowverse. So that's something there. So let's talk in the last scene. So for part 4, the last scene was Oliver's final moments with Barry and Sarah before his death, and then them witnessing the official birth of the new world, Earth Prime. So there's that. The last scene of part 5, though, is showing Oliver's monologue about the creation of the multiverse. So it's very similar to how the whole Crisis event started, with the Monitor explaining the creation of the multiverse, and we get all these montages of the different heroes from each of the worlds. This is the one where it ends and confirms that Earth Prime is where all our main heroes are originating from now. So there's that. We do see a bunch of cameos from other DC related shows that aren't part of the Arrowverse but have been made part of the multiverse. So we do get a little bit of something there. can't really, I know I recognize a few, but I can't really pinpoint. I'll research and put it up on screen because I don't watch any other shows outside of the outside of the Arrowverse, just so I'm not confused with anything. But there's that. So let's go into the tidbits. Part 4, the only tidbit I really wanted to point out was the fact that as the Spectre, Oliver apparently unlocked Barry's potential as a speedster. Not sure if it was temporary that he unlocked it so that he could fulfill what he needed to do for Crisis, or if he permanently unlocked the potential that Barry had as a speedster. So that is something there. Now for part 5, there's a bunch of tidbits I want to pick up on, mainly in regards to the New World changes that have happened, or that we've got to see. So first one being that Diggle now has a daughter. So Sarah, baby Sarah, has now turned into Kid Sarah, and they have a son. So they have 2 kids now. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be their son is actually John Jr. or if it's Connor. Some articles say that it is Junior, specifically because Connor told Sarah, or Diggle told Sarah that Connor is gone. But I'm not sure if he meant like future Connor is gone because of the memories he got, or if he meant like kid Connor or something. So I'm not sure, but the Diggle family has 2 kids. So there's that change. We have Mick, apparently has many prolific works published. He has doing book signings. He's comfortable with doing it now. So that's something there. We found out that the DEO is funded by Luthor Corp. They are the biggest supporters of Supergirl themselves. So unsure if there's any more tension between Lena and Kara at this point, since Lena wouldn't have remembered, but Kara would. Also, that's another thing too. Only the Paragons officially remembered what had happened in Crisis and what was the original multiverse was like. And then it was only after John Jones went around to their comrades to give them a little memory boost of what had happened. So I'm not sure if he specifically gave them the boost of like what happened in Crisis specifically, or he gave them memories of what he could about the multiverse beforehand. So that's something there, which would be interesting too, because he doesn't have all of their memories. So it's like, or he didn't have access to all their memories beforehand. So it's not like he could give them a reset of their own minds. Like, you know what I mean? So that's something there. Also, we find out that Lex Luthor got a Nobel Peace Prize. He's definitely not this new version of Lex. It's still the Paragon version of Lex that we're stuck with. So the evil mastermind one. So there's that. We also find out that Clark Kent has 2 sons, not 1. So potentially he had twins when they had baby Jonathan. Because I don't think they would have him having different age kids without it being like, because I don't know. Though I do have a confusion of the fact that, well, in this moment when it revealed to us as the audience that he has 2 kids, Clark behaves like he doesn't know this fact when he should, because as a non-Paragon, it's not like he would have remembered the previous life where he only had 1 child. Since as a non-Paragon, he would have still remembered this new world memories first before John gave him the additional memories of what happened in Crisis. So I don't get why he seemed surprised that he had sons, plural, like would have happened if he was in Kara's position and she just got found out that she had multiple kids when she only knows her Crisis memories. Like, you know what I mean? So that was something there. Also, we found out that a female president not named officially thanked and recognized Oliver as the first of the heroes and for the sacrifice he gave them. So that's something there. Also, it has been implied that there are many team-ups among our heroes, photos, selfies, specifically Flash and Supergirl, pretty much connecting them all with their specialties in regards to like which criminals to deal with and stuff. So that's the implications there. But let's move on to the most shocking moment of the episode. For part 4, the fact that Oliver died again. I mean, it's something I hoped we would not have to witness once again. I thought maybe because he died in the part 1 that maybe that was his way out of the fate that the Monitor had given him. But to have him die once again is just like, really? I didn't want to have to go through that death once more time. Plus, I didn't think they would do it because there's still 2 more episodes left of Arrow. So if Oliver's officially dead by the time the event is over, what capacity are we going to see him in Arrow's final 2 episodes? You know what I mean? So there's that. And also another major shocker was the fact that we got the Flash from the DC Extended Universe, or the movie version of the Flash. We had him making an appearance and interacting with our TV version of the Flash. Apparently, no one on the cast knew except for Grant Gustin and Ezra Miller. Only them and whichever crew was working at the time knew about the interaction. Every other cast member that was part of Crossos did not know. So I thought that was pretty cool that they were able to keep it under wraps, because with today's day and age of social media, good luck trying to keep spoilers under wraps, like, you know. So that was like a huge shock right there. Plus also the fact that they managed to make it part of the Crisis event. I didn't think we would see the film world be connected in such a way. It would have been pretty cool if they managed to do the MCU as well, but that's like a completely separate thing, you know what I mean? But like, it was blowing my mind right there. So there's that. For part 5, the most shocking moment I would have to say was the fact that Oliver wasn't featured whatsoever, except for like his voice at the very end when he explained the creation of the new multiverse. So that was a surprise there. Another surprise I did have was the fact that Black Lightning is now part of Earth Prime, specifically since his Earth hasn't actually been numbered quite yet. So I'm still surprised. Like, I'm glad, but then also at the same time, it's like, is that going to cause problems with what's happening on Black Lightning? So that's something there. And also, I was surprised that the Legends weren't actually part of the crossover event. Yes, we saw cameos from Nate and Ava, but they still weren't part of like the main action of the crossover. It was only Ray, Sarah, and Mick that were taking part in it, which I was pretty disappointed in and a little surprised by, and also Bebo. That was pretty much the only other thing that was Legends based, so that was something there. But let's move on to top favorite moments. I won't say 3 because there's a lot. So with part 4, I will say a favorite moment was the whole "Do you trust me" moment between Oliver and Barry. Yes, they used it too much between the two, but I did like the notion of Oliver saying, "Do you trust me?" and Barry saying, like, "With every cell of my body," type of thing. It would have been great if it was said once with Barry, and then when Oliver says it again, "Do you trust me?" I would have preferred if Sarah would have had repeated Barry's line, and then like maybe Kara doing the same thing later on, just to show that like they do all trust him, and it's not just Barry repeating his own line 3 times. But I did like the notion behind it that despite Oliver not being just Oliver and being something more, Barry will still trust him with his life no matter what. So it just really shows how far they've come in the 6 years that they've had their friendship, mentorship type thing. So there's that. Also, like, despite the sadness of it, I did love Oliver's moments with Barry and Sarah at the very end, telling them that he's at peace now, and the fact that they're heroes, they have to be heroes and can keep fighting and move forward. So I really like that. It was also just interesting to see Barry and Sarah being closer together, which I will tie in later on. But it was just great, despite the sadness, that Oliver got that moment between them. I'm still on the fence of whether or not I would have liked Kara to be there too, just to show as like the headrunners of their own shows coming together to the one that started it all. But Barry and Sarah both had like a very personal connection with Oliver before they even became heroes. So that's something there. I also did like the revisiting of old memories. It was just such a throwback for sure. We got to see Sarah during her first death with 302, with Diggle and Laurel of Earth 1. More of it seeing Diggle and Laurel at that moment, and then suddenly meeting the Flash when the Flash wasn't even around at that time, and then Sarah was just pretty much resurrected by Barry. It's like, what the hell is going on type of thing. So that was funny. It was interesting to see John interacting with Oliver and Kara during the Dominator event. It was a little weird seeing them both dressed differently than what they were supposed to be dressed as, because you had Kara in her old suit, but she still had bangs, so it's like a mix of the present and yet the old suit. Oliver, same thing, old suit, but he had like the beard and everything still. So it's like, it was weird, but it was interesting to hear what John had to say to the two of them and how much of an impact. Like, this is the moment you two didn't trust each other, but years later you have come to trust each other with your life type of thing. And then we see Kate being introduced to a season 3 moment with Oliver and Ray before they became to know and trust each other with their secrets. So it's very interesting for Kate to not only witness that moment, but to take away from it that she can't keep herself closed off and not trusting, because like Oliver had done. So like, it was great to see that she's going to learn from Oliver's actions in a sense, but it was just weird to see like her being included on that part. But it was interesting to see that kind of a perspective change there. And then also it was interesting to see Barry interrupt the Elseworlds battle and learning from Oliver what the deal was with the monitor and just how much his friend truly sacrificed for not only him and Kara, but for the world type in a way. So that was pretty cool there to get different perspectives and all that. And then another favorite I did have, again, despite the sadness, is the fact that they brought it all back to the fact that Oliver is the one that created this new multiverse, paralleling the fact that it was the show itself, Arrow, that started the Arrowverse. So I really like that parallel, and the fact that it was most fitting to the fact that it was Oliver that started it all, so it should be him that truly started it all once again. So that was something there. Now, my favorites for part 5 were, again, despite this sadness, I did like Diggle's reaction to Oliver's death, just because I felt that so bad. Like, I mean, yes, I will say it now and I will say it again later. It sucks that Diggle couldn't be there for Oliver during those 2 moments where he couldn't be there during Oliver's last moments. But to see Diggle's reaction to it and just see how hard it was affecting him, that was my favorite, just because performance-wise, that was just well done. Story-wise, it hurt so much just to see it, and it pains me to say it's my favorite, but it's mostly just like the impact it had is why it's my favorite. So there's that. I also just like the fact that we do get a lot of bonding between Sarah and Barry, especially over the death of Oliver, and just having them try to reminisce through their moments with him like that, and trying to figure out a way for them to move on without him. So that's something there. Another favorite, a more lighthearted favorite, was Barry and Kara's excitement over the fact that they're on the same Earth. That means they could team up more often. And then they were just excited over the fact that, like, hey, it's like, come on over here, help me, let's check out the others. It's just like more of like, okay, let's, like, it's our turn to like team up and stuff. And just them having selfies together and like fan photos of themselves having selfies together, it was pretty funny in itself. So that was something there. Another favorite I did have was the final battle being utilized by the different crossover characters in their element, which is something I truly hoped we would always see. So like in this moment, we got Barry, Ray, Ryan, and Nash creating the shrink bomb, and then mentioning the microverse, and then just Ray, Ryan, and Nash being all jittery over the fact that Barry created this thing with his speed, and then it's like he's Ray's like, you're precious, and then like they're all like Rush's like, no, don't do that, but then like Ray's like amazed by the fact that I always love that he uses his speed and stuff like that. So that was like the Geek Squad moment that they were talking about, so that's something there. I also like the team up with Mick, Frost, and Black Lightning, and their dynamic and banter between each other there. So it's just great to see like they specifically were teamed up to utilize certain aspects of themselves, like with John, Supergirl, and Superman teamed up, and then Adam joined them later on because they can all have the ability to fly and fight the bigger version of the Anti-Monitor. So, and then Sarah was the one that was taking point and being the leader in when usually it's Oliver who takes point, makes the plans, and executes them. So I really like them all like stepping up and like doing their part, and yet also splitting up to be able to do their part better. So I do appreciate that. Another favorite I did mention before, was the Hall of Justice. Originally I called it the Hall of Heroes because it made sense until I looked it up and it's the Hall of Justice. But it was very interesting to get not only their specific speeches to Oliver's memorial, but also just the idea and introduction of the table, and then Black Lightning realizing that, oh, this world-ending thing is a normal, and then Kate was like, don't worry, I was a new kid, I was in your shoes last year as the new kid type of thing. So it was just like a great atmosphere between them, and the idea of like them liking the table. It's like, yeah, we could get used to this being like our main headquarters. So I hope next year's crossover we do see that Hall of Justice, not just like in partial construction, but like full on decked out with tech and everything. So that would be like the coolest thing ever. And then another favorite I did have was the fact that we got the speech by the president recognizing Oliver's sacrifice and what he started as being the first of the heroes. So I do appreciate that as well. So let's move on to top peeved moments. Part 4, the only peeve I have was the fact that Oliver died again. Like, why? I thought like maybe we could have had him get out of that loophole of him dying, but as being a Spectre, but apparently not. And since I don't know the full scope of what it means for him to be a Spectre, I don't read the comics at all. So at this moment, based on what the show is showing me, Oliver's dead and gone, and I don't know why. So there's that. Part 5, though, peeves was, as I mentioned, Diggle not being there for Oliver in his last moments. Again, that hits hard because, as he says, he's my brother, I let him down, and like it hurts to to have that fully realized in that moment. So that was a peeve there. Another peeve I had was the fact that I just wanted to see a lot more characters during that moment of silence that the president asked for in Oliver's honor. I mean, I am disappointed that we didn't get to see a future Mia and William, but it makes sense why they wouldn't be. But I'm just surprised that we didn't even get to see a young William reacting to that broadcast and maybe getting hugged by a blonde woman from behind, and who we know is not Emily just yet, but implying the fact that he is with Felicity in that moment, or just every other character that Oliver has had an impact on, and having them just like, because we saw it with Ava, we saw it with Nathan. They took a moment of silence to react on that. I would have really appreciated if we got to see a lot more of the characters that Oliver has had impact on. The fact that we don't get Thea reacting to his death on screen. The fact that we don't have Roy reacting. The fact that we don't have maybe Mari McCabe from Vixen just like having a cameo moment of her showing her acknowledgement of his death in silence. And just like, I would have wished that we just got to see all the characters that ever interacted with Oliver. Anatoly even. We didn't even get Anatoly's reaction. So I just would have loved it in that moment. For that brief moment, all you really would have to get is the character to react in that moment of them just like looking on, looking down, and reacting to it. I mean, like, of all the characters that we have seen in Arrow so far, even if they're only in for the one episode, I'm just wondering, could it have taken just a moment to have them walk off on stage or in a different setting and just have them make a short little cameo video of them just looking on, looking down, and reacting to the fact that I'm giving this moment of silence to Oliver, and then just use that footage for this moment. I'm just wondering why something like that couldn't be done, especially for characters who have been on the show already and who are still supposed to technically be alive at this point. Why not? Like, otherwise, I'm just very surprised that we didn't even get that. Like, William. You want to see William have a reaction. You want to have it implied that Felicity is watching. Or like have William sitting beside a blonde woman from behind, and you know that she's carrying a baby. At least have that knowledge that you know that his family specifically is reacting to this news. And then Thea or Roy, or having them be with Felicity reacting to this news or something. Or them being together somewhere reacting to it. Or Anatoly, like, you know what I mean? So I was, like, very disappointed after I realized just, like, we don't see a lot of characters that have made a huge impact in Oliver's life reacting to the news that he's dead. Whether or not they're going to do that in the actual final 2 episodes of Arrow's run, I don't know. But I thought, like, in this moment, they could have done it. Especially when, like, if you remember back to the Crisis on Earth X crossover that we had where Professor Stein had died, I'm pretty sure we had a lot of characters who came into contact, that we know of came into contact with him, reacting to his death and attending his funeral. Like, you know what I mean? Hopefully. But that was a peeve there. And then another peeve is just a logical one or illogical one. I don't know how you want to say it. But the fact that they were fighting... Our heroes were fighting shadow demons as if they were regular soldiers, and yet shadow demons kind of implies that they don't have a corporeal form. So that means if I'm punching a shadow, I shouldn't be able to hit anything. So, plus also a shadow demon, I'm also immediately referring to the shadow demon, the Deva demon, that we saw in Supernatural episode 116, where the Winchesters could not even hit these creatures, yet these creatures could grab a hold of them because they were shadows. They were invisible shadows. And the only way you could defeat them was by pretty much exposing them to a whole bunch of light. So it just still doesn't make sense how they were able to fight shadow demons when they could disappear and reappear in front of them. It's like, how can you hit them? Like, you know? So that's something there. But let's move on. Now, for my previous 3 videos, I did have the section of crossover hopes. One of them they did manage to fulfill, not in the way I kind of hoped, but another one in regards to where Batwoman and where Elseworlds fits with Batwoman's history. They did not verify it. They again confirmed that this event takes place a year after the events of Elseworlds, which still doesn't make up the fact that where in Batwoman's history, or where in Kate's history as Batwoman does Elseworlds fall, because as we know, Batwoman only started up like 3 months ago, and yet it's being implied that she has been Batwoman 3 years ago, or a year ago, but Batwoman didn't have the full Batwoman suit and red hair wig until episode 3, so she didn't even start off with that look in particular. So it's a little confusing timeline-wise where exactly those events fit in to line up with what Batwoman, the show, has started us off with. So they didn't really answer my question about that, which is disappointment in itself. So I'll leave it at that. But let's move on to random questions, and very quickly, the timer is about to go off soon. But questions I had from part 4 are, 1, how did the Paragons help reshape the universe when they just stood there as Oliver created the new world? Or did they just need to be present during its creation to establish the 7 points of what humanity stood for? So that's a question there. Because I was expecting some kind of light show or some kind of like something like they actually contributed to the moment the universe formed, but they just stood there and watched. So I was like, wait, what? It was like kind of like anticlimactic in a sense of why they needed to be there. So that's something, especially after the speech that Kara gave in recognition of why they needed to, like what they needed to do next. Another question was, what else did Spectre, Oliver unlock in Barry's potential? The timer just went off. It's a different source for the timer, but there it goes. But so what else did he unlock in Barry's potential? Was it just allowing him to go faster? Was it different powers? Will we see those being explored a little bit more in the second half of the Flash season? So what have you there? Or was it only a temporary thing that only allowed for him to do what needed to be done in the Crisis event? So that's something there. Now for part 5, I did have a lot more questions. First one, could we see more crossovers in the second half of the current seasons of our shows, especially if they're all on Earth Prime? I mean, if they do, that means they have to pay closer attention to continuity, especially for those end of the world showdowns, for sure. Or if they have any timeline changes or visits from past and present and stuff. So that's something there. Another question, if they give an official goodbye to Oliver in this episode, what are we going to see in the final 2 episodes of Arrow? I know for 809 for Arrow, it's supposed to be a backdoor pilot for Green Arrow and the Canaries, which is supposed to take place in 2040. So it already makes sense why we wouldn't see Oliver there, because he's already dead. But like, what are they going to do in the series finale? Like, what are we, like, we have to still see Oliver in it. Like, as the lead of the show, he has to be in every episode in some way, shape, or form. I hope it's not just a voice, because, like, that's, like, no. So that's something there. Another question. Do you think future Felicity's ending in 722 with the Monitor taking her to Oliver has changed due to what has happened in Crisis? Or do you still think that what had happened to her is what was meant to happen all along, despite what happened with Crisis? Even though the Monitor stated specifically that Oliver's first death was not the death he had foresaw Oliver partaking in. So that's a question there. Another question. Were the adult Mia, William, and Connor sent back to the future, or are they completely changed now that the world has been recreated? Also, the same could be applied to Brainy since he's from the future. Was he affected, or did he get sent back and we get a different version of Brainy, or did he just never come back to begin with? So that's a question there. Because essentially, with the whole recreating of the universe, they pretty much did another Flashpoint type of moment where they recreated everything. But then that puts into question, like, how could our characters still be in the same place roughly if literally the whole universe got reset? I mean, but then it's also putting the implication of the fact that you were destined to be on this path, so you were destined to turn up at this point. So I don't know. That's like, you know, me and time travel confuses the hell out of me because it's a lot of things that contradict each other when you're trying to explain it to yourself. So that's a question in itself. Another question is, if there was no multiverse left in existence, then how could another Monitor create the Anti-Monitor when Ryan Choi originally convinced the Monitor that he did talk to not to go back to the dawn of time? Because then when they went back to the dawn of time and the Anti-Monitor was still there, he said that even though you stop one Monitor, there's still other Monitors out there that would not have been persuaded to stop with exploring their ambition or something like that. So it's like, that makes sense, but then at the same time, it's like, if the multiverse doesn't exist anymore, then how could there be other versions of the Monitor who could still come to the dawn of time and create the Anti-Monitor? You know what I mean? So it's just like, I feel like either it didn't make sense or they made a flub on that in continuity theory-wise. So that's something there. And the last question. If the multiverse was recreated, then why was Supergirl's Earth and Black Lightning's Earth merged into Earth 1 to create Earth Prime? I mean, if essentially there was one Earth and then we had it later turning into the multiverse once again when we saw all the cameos of all the other DC-related shows that aren't part of the Arrowverse, then why were those three specifically merged together to Prime 1, to Earth Prime? Also, with that said, does that mean that Earth Prime now has 3 times the population because it now has Earth 1, Earth 38, and Black Lightning's Earth, which I saw it labeled being Earth 23, but I'm not sure. But if we have all 3 of those Earths being combined to create Earth Prime, does that mean we now have 3 times the population on Earth Prime? Or does it mean that there's people from Earth 1 or from all 3 Earths that just did not make it when they were supposed to? So like, say like, not everyone from all 3 Earths were revived when they were alive at the point of crisis, and when the 3 Earths merged to create Earth Prime. Does it mean that there are just some people who did not survive that reset and they just weren't revived? Or maybe were all the duplicates just not... So if there was a duplicate on all 3 Earths, was it just possible that those duplicates just did not come back? Or what have you? Because like, it's either Earth Prime is 3 times the population, or you have to deal with the fact that there might be some characters from each of the 3 shows that are just not there anymore because they just did not survive the crisis reset. Like, you know what I mean? It has to either be that there's too many people on this Earth, or just not everybody came back during the reset. So I'm just wondering which scenario that case was. But otherwise, guys, that is pretty much it. I'm not going to go into prediction because I'm not going to cover all 5 shows in regards to what's coming next. But they do have the promos up for all the mid-season premieres. So they do have all those posted. They all look fantastic and with a great plan up ahead. So I did see those. So check those out, especially pertaining to whichever show that you watch. But otherwise, that is pretty much it, guys. What do you guys think of the Crisis event? What did you like, or what do you think should have happened? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and opinions about that. I still personally would have preferred the format that they did with the Earth X crossover. But that's just me. But this one was definitely epic on its own. But I digress. So don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, GIFs, synopses, news, all that good stuff, all found in one place. Go check that out. Little behind. I just finished week 2 of term 2 for me. I have a lot of stuff due next week from all my classes that I should really get started on or finish up on. But there's that. Same thing goes for WordPress. A little more organized, a little more detailed. The link is down below in itself. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress. I still have to update that, so keep that in mind. But you should find everything connected there in some way, shape, or form. So there's that. So otherwise, guys, that is pretty much it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you come back to see what I have to say about any other shows I talk about. Otherwise, I will probably do Legends premiere, season premiere. I will probably do Arrow for the last 2 episodes for sure. And for Flash, they don't return it until February 4th. I will put it up on screen what the premiere schedule is like. So quickly check that out as well. But again, because of school, it's not going to be the Arrowverse shows aren't as covered as previously done before. But I do hope you just still come back to see what I did post or what I have covered, just to see where my thoughts have gone throughout the course of the season. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for your patience. Again, sorry if I said that. But I hope you guys have a great day, great week wherever you are. If you're somewhere where they are dealing with the massive snowstorm right now, please stay warm, please stay safe. And guys, have a great day. Take care. Bye.